Come to Mountain Movement and get one of our sick jerseys. We have them in a bunch of different colors. This is the one I'm just deciding to wear today. Today I'm going to show you guys, my little techie Tuesday chicklets, how to bleed a brake. I'm going to show you how to bleed the back brake, but if you follow the directions on the back brake, everything is exactly the same on the front brake. This is a SRAM setup, so if you have a Shimano setup, come tune in later, because I will have a video coming out on how to bleed Shimano brakes. Do not try any of these steps on your SRAM brakes, on your Shimano brakes, because it's just a completely different concept and you need different stuff. I put that disclaimer out there. It's not our fault if you bleed your Shimano brakes with SRAM fluid. I'm just saying. To start off, I always like to raise my brake because I want to make sure the least amount of fluid gets, everywhere. I raise it up about parallel, and you want to make sure it's the back brake. Okay, then you want to check to make sure where it is out, your brake is out in millimeters. So you go from here to here. It's about 70. I prefer it to be a little bit more in, so I will fix that later, but I suggest people to start around 70 millimeters, and you can do that by turning this out or inward, this little crank thing. But I will start there. It's the normal place where all brakes kind of start, and then based off of your riding style and things like that, you will experience, you'll want to get it in or get it out less. And then if you have these little knobs, these contact points, you want to turn it away from the arrow. Mine's already turned all the way out just because it's bled very well. Next, you want to go to the back brake. The back tire, and you're gonna need a 5 to take your back wheel off. Take that off because you won't need it until the very end. And then this next part is crucial. If you don't listen to anything that I say throughout the whole entire video, listen to this part, is you need to put on some gloves, some sort of mechanical gloves, things like that. Grab like a paper towel, nothing that has like any kind of a shedding or like a kind of like a fleece fabric to the towel, because that could get onto your brake pads. So I grab a shop towel, and then I can lay it like right here. And then you want to take out your brake pads. You want to be extra careful to not touch the surface of your brake pads. This is huge. Do not touch the surface of your brake pads. Even if you're wearing gloves, do not touch the surface of your brake pads. Don't touch it. Don't touch it ever. Probably 2.5. Some bikes are different. You want to be extraordinarily careful here. Brake pads are super, you get any bit of oil on your brake pads, you could ruin your brake pads. Take them out. I hold them just like this. You're not going to touch it, and then just let it be. What I like to do, it's not required, is I like to push my brake pads back all the way in. There is tools for this, but I've never found a good tool more than just a flathead screwdriver. Is you just want to make sure it's flat, because you don't want to chip your brake pad. You just want to push it in. See, that doesn't sound great. Push it all the way in. Make sure all of your brake pads are evenly in. Careful, don't hinge on this, because these can actually snap, and then you kind of got to replace your back brake. Alright, once you've done that, if you bought a bleed kit, it'll probably come with one of these. It's like a little spacer. You're going to put it into your little brake area, and then you're going to take your brake pin. And if you don't have one of these, in a crunch, you can do cardboard. I've done cardboard just because I couldn't find a spacer small enough for a bike that I was bleeding. You just kind of have to pick what you do. And then now you're ready to prepare the syringes to bleed the actual brake. First, you want to take a T25, and this is your bleed valve. Take it out and then just tighten it back, but don't like tighten it down, just kind of like a little bit down. There you go. Now you're ready to prepare your syringes. To bleed SRAM brakes, you're gonna need DOT brake fluid. Check your owner's manual to make sure you have the correct brake fluid. My brakes require 5.1 DOT fluid, so just make sure that everything is correct on your bike. You don't want to put wrong fluids in. I've heard a YouTube video somewhere where they put dish soap into their brake fluids. Didn't know how that turned out, but I would never risk doing that on any brakes. This is the end where the will go on your back brake. It has these little clips, and you want to put it up to the 5 mark, about a 1/4 up. I do a little bit more, and you'll see why in a second. And you flip it up, get all those air bubbles out. I bet if you're like a nurse or something like that, you're probably really good at this. That's your first syringe. You want to be careful where the brake fluid goes, because a lot of your bike components can be really messed up if you get brake fluid on your brakes. So just be very careful. This is where you wear gloves. You don't want to get it anywhere where you don't want it, because then it becomes a hassle. So the process of bleeding brakes is you're getting all of the air out of your brake lines to have, so it's not like there's no bubbles in your brake. So I always put this one first. I'm gonna make sure to clean it. Just make sure you get all of the like DOT fluid as much as you can off. And then I'm gonna wrap the area, just to be extra careful. Insert it. You should hear some sort of click. Alright, now you want to go up to the front brake. You also want to be very careful here, because fluid will come out, and then you can also strip these bolts. They're kind of like butter. And then if you get any brake fluid, it can go all the way down the line onto your front brake, and then you'll have a squeaky front brake, which you definitely don't want. Take that off. Make sure you try not to get any dirt, particles, or see, it's already leaking. I'll show you in just a second. Wipe it all off. You don't want it anywhere near any of these lines, getting in it in different places. But you see it's kind of a liquid's in there, and that's your brake fluid that's already in there. Make sure it's already clipped. Screw it in. Alright, now you're ready for the bleeding process. As you unclip up here, and you go down here, and you turn these little knobs, this little knob, out no more than 1.5 turns. And then you're going to push the brake fluid through. It's not giving me as much air as I want, as much fluid as I want, so I'm gonna turn it a little bit more. There you go. And if you look right here, there's these little air bubbles. You're never gonna bleed a brake perfectly, but you can get pretty stinky close. Now that I started off, if you remember, I started off the 5 down here and the 15 up here. Now I'm at the like 11, just because there's fluid in the line. Now I'm gonna go backwards and push it back through. Things you want to look for when you're bleeding your brakes. If it's been a while since you bled your brakes, you want to look if there's kind of like any darkness in the fluid. That's pretty bad. I would replace either your line, all of the fluid in your brake. I would just empty it all out. My brakes are bled pretty well, so there's not too many air bubbles. And this is probably the last time I'm going to take it through. You want to do this process about 3 times. And then I'm going to take this to about the 10 now. Right there. Close that off, tighten this down. And I'm just going to leave that alone for now. And I'm going to finish up here. Then you want to squeeze your brake out. Try to get as many air bubbles as you can. another process you can do is take a zip tie it to your handlebar, lean your bike up in the upward position, and then just tap your line, get all the pedals out, all the bubbles out. But I won't do that today because this is, well, blood brake. I want to pressurize inside my brake. I want to push it down. Push it up. Take it up. See all those bubbles coming out? Yeah. Take it back down. You want to do this about 3 times. Based on how many bubbles you see. Take it all the way down. Clip it. And we can finish everything down here. And then go to here. Take this all the way out. I'm going to reverse everything I just did. I'm going to tighten this down. Tightly. Put your little cap in. That out. Put that in right. And we can finish up here. And if you try this, I've done this several times on several different bikes, so I have a little bit of experience, but you might fail, you might. One time I shot my syringe everywhere one time. I've shot dot fluid in my face before, so don't be afraid to fail. If you do it again, I guarantee you might have better results than the time before. And I never torque these. Some people do. I kind of just feel the correct tightness, and then if I lose it somehow, I've never lost one. That's about good for me. But if I lose it somehow, I know I can just replace it. But these are super easy to strip, incredibly easy to strip, and there's nothing worse than trying to take one of these out that have been stripped. It is the worst process to ever do, especially as a bike mechanic. I say that a lot, but it is probably the worst thing you can do. So there is that's back. So then you want to take your brakes back down to where you like them, which is about there for me. Tighten it. Don't forget to re-torque this. Somewhat torqued, but it'll be fine for me. Then you want to put your wheel back on. And this is what got me the first time I ever bled brake. I did everything correct that my mentor showed me when I was learning how to do all of this. And I was like, oh yeah, this is great. And then I got to this part. Up here. You want to check to make sure that the brake is bled. So you do this, and then what I did was I squeezed the brakes, and it went all the way to the end, and I was like, oh no, it's not bled. I'm like, no one wants a bled brake that closes all the way to the handle. So, but what you don't know is that you gotta push the piston back in against the rotor. So try it again, don't get immediately discouraged. That's a little bit better. Try it again. Boom. This is where it met me. SRAM brakes have a little bit more squeeze to them, where Shimano will meet you about right here. Mine go right there. And that is a successfully bled brake. Now I'm gonna move this in. Just feel how your brakes are. And that's where I want them. And so that, to me, shows that I have successfully bled my SRAM brakes. Thank you for joining in for Tech